All right, well, before I introduce you today, I was thinking about, and I might have mentioned this before, I was thinking about one time when Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods were playing golf together at a tournament, and they were announcing them, and they announced Phil Mickelson, and, he teed off, and then they announced Tiger Woods, and the guy started listing Tiger Woods' resume. And it was going on, and Phil in the background goes, all right. And everybody cracked up.
That would be funny.
So that's what I feel like when I introduce you. All right already.
Well.
So I'm Scott Farber. The man over there, of course, is the host of the Extra Point on this network, the co-host of our podcast. Memphis living legend, former NFL player, current NFL Player Association President Larry Mallory, my good friend. But now, as I give that long list, I sit here and I go, okay, so it's impressive, all these things you've done. But what people don't know is that while you were in college, being a star football player, overshadowed by Ed Too Tall Jones. And then what people don't know, although you're a star of your own TV show, you grew up and went to high school with Oprah Winfrey.
That's true.
So anyway, for whatever that's worth.
And I have to add, though, that the only reason that I can't give the long list for Scott Farber, number one, is too long, and number two, I just can't remember certain things.
And I was thinking about that. One day, we really need to talk about our backgrounds, like even on this show. And the reason I say that, Rhonda and I have been married 25 years, and we have 3 kids. And been married once before, and I have an older daughter, Kelly. Kelly was a baby in my previous life.
Right.
My kids, Jordan, you know my kids, and Jordan's in his 20s, Samantha's in her 20s, Alyssa's 18. They have no clue of what I've done because I've owned the ad agency their entire life. They don't know that I anchored TV, that I created TV shows. They know nothing about that, and they have no interest in it. But I still, at some point, want to tell them, so they'll know that at least someday.
Well, I might have to interview you then one day.
That's right. That's what we need to do. It's a sad story, though. So all right, we're having this chit chat instead of talking about the Super Bowl, and I think probably because that Super Bowl the season was so good. There were surprises. There was Patrick Mahomes. The Bears had an unexpected year after being in last place 4 years in a row. It was a great season. The ratings were up. Everything was good. And then the anticipation of the Super Bowl was huge. Yeah. It was a letdown.
And I like the way you just described it, because what you just described was a rising excitement.
Right.
Throughout the year, and it was points were scored, 44-35, offense was going, the public is happy.
And the culmination.
And we come to the culmination of the pyramid, and it's 3-3 at halftime.
It was 3-0 at the half. It was like, oh my gosh. And these were the 2 highest scoring teams.
Exactly. 2 highest scoring teams, with the expectations from not only the teams but from the public that this was going to be an exciting time. Not only was the game not as exciting as we wanted, even the activities. Now, I'm not killing Atlanta. Atlanta was a beautiful city. The stadium is fantastic.
Right, and Atlanta's a great city.
It is. It's a great city. There was a lot of things to do. But I'm in the Super Bowl gospel choir, but this time there were a lot of social issues going around football. For instance, I was invited to the Lee Steinberg panel.
Right.
Lee Steinberg was an agent for all the quarterbacks. Yeah. And before his party starts at 12, we actually had a children's health and safety seminar.
Right.
To where we had four people on the panel, and they invited specific people to ask questions about the helmets and child youth safety, and we talked about brain health. One of the players, there was a doctor on there, a radio announcer, but one of the players had actually broken his neck in Cowboy Stadium on a kickoff return. And if any player had just moved his hand or any part of his body, he would have died on the field. And he had an amazing story, just about...
Is he paralyzed now, or is he
No,
okay?
he's not. In fact, he had more of an injury than Ryan's,
Right.
the guy that's kind of paralyzed.
Right.
But the issue was, and now his father was his coach growing up and put a lot of things in, and now he's his son's coach, and he started a more civil and safe way to play youth football, which, is what we focus on too.
Right. That's amazing.
It was a lot of things around, a lot of different events around it. However, normally, and I was so, normally I've been in the choir for many years, and normally there's these big parties and everybody gives away garb and free stuff that I was going to bring back to you guys.
Right.
But they didn't have it this year. This year...
You could have paid for it and brought it to me. I would accept it if you bought it.
This year they gave you any drinks you wanted and any food you wanted. But all in all, it was not as much garb and those kinds
pomp
of
and circumstance.
Pomp and circumstance.
Yeah. Well, this is your choir.
This is this is the 20th anniversary of the NFL Super Bowl Gospel Choir. I've been singing now for about 10 years. Interesting, it's owned by a young lady called Melanie Few, and Melanie lives there in Atlanta, and she kind of started this friends, family, and faith friends, family, and football.
Right.
So it kind of brings us together. And Scott, the night we practiced until 12:30 the night before, 1:30 almost, right? But the day of the show, the practice session, we had about 40 guys. The day of the show, we had about 70.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And BET, it was on BET, and it's an annual thing, and really turned out to be nice.
Now, did you bring some of that back for us?
Some of the
choir?
Well, it's...
I haven't seen... I know you brought back some interviews, and I haven't seen anything yet.
Yes.
And they may even put some of those interviews into this podcast But did you get some of the choir or no?
I didn't get a chance to get some of the choir, but I have some videos that's coming. One of our friends, mutual friends... not only took videos of us singing, but also took videos of the Super Bowl.
Okay.
They were on the 30th row.
Oh
down,
man,
so
are you going to be in trouble? You took video of the Super Bowl. Yeah, the NFL Films is going to be knocking on your door.
That's true. And Homeland Security was all over Atlanta, arresting people with fake garb that did not have the NFL logo on it.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of that going on around.
Wow. All right, so since we don't have you on videotape singing, are you going to perform live now?
Well, I don't know if I can remember the song.
Oh, you are so bad.
CT?
Yeah.
But it is on BET, and I can make a clip of it and I'll get it to you because it's reviewed on BET.
Well, we could find Larry on YouTube, I'm sure.
That's true.
Singing, But we're going to get him to sing one day on this show when he's not so shy, because I know you're a very shy person anyway.
That's true.
All right, so, the first thing that I told you before we started taping that I noticed through all the playoffs, you always talked about how Belichick was your first coach, special teams coach, and you were the holder, and he worked with you guys to get the snap to be released to you a certain way where you would catch it every time, where you catch and the ball goes down. You don't take the 18th of a second or whatever to spin it. So the ball is always going to be perfect for the kicker. And I'm sitting and going, that's impossible. Larry's telling stories, And then I'm watching the playoffs, and watching the Patriots, and never on a field goal or a extra point did I see the holder spin that football. Right. It would be catch and plant kick.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Do all teams do that now, or is it still just Belichick that figured it out?
Scott, that is an absolutely fantastic question.
I gotta watch now.
Yeah, Belichick has been around for so long. And he has so many of his people that have come under him coaching.
Right.
That are in other teams.
Right.
You would think that because they were developed from a coaching perspective on being specific like him. So I would think that they are some coaches now that are looking...
Well, they got to it, all those little things.
Yeah. Paying more attention to some of the more specific athletic things that make you win versus those that make you lose. Just depending upon one part. Belichick adjusts in every phase of the game to every game.
Yeah, yeah. And people don't really understand the science of the game. They just think, oh, the quarterback drops back and whoever he sees open, he throws the football to. There is such a science to the game and how the defense lines up. And we were even talking earlier, just the guys on the outside where they turn in to force the wide receiver who has to go to the inside of the field. And if he wants to go outside, he's just got extra steps to run,
That's right.
which gives the safety more time to get over there.
That's right.
So there's a lot of things in the science of the game that people at home don't really see. Well, let's talk about the game. We got Tom Brady, who is going down as the greatest of all time. That big word I can't say. Arguably. But in this last Super Bowl, it was anything but Brady-like. It sort of reminded me of Peyton Manning in his second Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. He didn't look so good when Denver won either. Denver won it on defense. And Tom was 21 of 35 for 262 yards. He had a fumble, and his first pass was intercepted. It was not a good, smart move on a good throw. And his quarterback rating was 71.4. And if we say, should Tom Brady retire, you're going to laugh at me. But when is it enough? When do you say to a guy that's a superstar, possibly the greatest ever, does he have to be told to leave?
No, I don't think he has to be told to leave. But I think that when 6 of your years that you were in the league, you finish at the highest echelon of the sport. And this particular year, you've again finished as a Super Bowl winner.
Right.
It's very difficult to come back and quit then.
Right, but there's the team going, that decline is there, and
Well, if the decline is there, then that means that the other 31 teams have even more of a decline because they finished at the top.
I understand that, but I'm just talking about his individual performance.
Right.
I got to give some of that win to the defense.
Yeah.
That wasn't a Tom Brady win.
Right.
He might have had a good drive in there, but that's fine. I didn't, he didn't just fall off a cliff.
Right.
But if there is a decline in a professional athlete, we've seen it in almost every sport. Guys hang around too long, and how do you tell your superstar, maybe it's time to go away? And that's a bad choice of words. Maybe it's time to retire.
Well, the two things. The superstar is normally the person that touches the ball most.
Right.
But a Belichick team, Brady is going to get the attention. He got a beautiful wife, makes a lot of money,
right.
Stuff. But one thing, it's almost like when you say Bill Belichick, you should say Belichick team.
Right.
It's a team approach to
Absolutely
Belichick.
It is.
And the way that he coaches, it's a natural progression for the quarterback to get get all the accolades.
Right.
You can stick around a long time because wherever the weakness is, Belichick finds that weakness and then applies his strength to it. So it's not like the whole thing is on Brady's back.
Yeah.
So he can hang around a long time.
All right. I just, you see some of these superstars start to age in all sports, and you kind of cringe for them because they become a shell of themselves, and you don't want to see that with Brady. I know he wants to play till he's 45 because he drinks concoctions that they create out of healthy food. And he is in great shape, and he is very good. But when they decline, when do you say it's time to move on? Edelman, what did you think of his day? 10 receptions, 141 yards.
I think that Edelman is the they say the difference in a professional and an amateur is consistency. And I think that he's a very consistent player. He's not a dominant player, but he's a consistent player. I think he's well versed in whatever the game plan is. And I think he has a good interaction with Brady.
Yeah,
he knows how to get Brady out of the if there's some issues. He cuts the routes off at the right time. They're just pretty well aligned.
Well, when you say he's not a dominant player, I might argue that point a little bit because he seemed to be open by a lot on every pass.
Right. by play.
Yeah.
By that particular play call for that particular defense.
Yeah. I mean, but he seems to get it done. Now,
I don't
Jared.
see him though. I don't see him being physically dominant over the defensive.
Oh,
backs
I
that he's
got
playing.
you. Like a Gronkowski.
Exactly. He's not that kind of dominant.
Yeah.
He's smart. He has a feel for Brady when he's in trouble. Underneath passing for them is very, very important.
So now, Gronk is talking about retiring possibly. Maybe not. So there's another, there's my next question. He looked pretty good in that game to me. He made probably the key catch that, helped keep the, the drive going. So is it time for him to retire?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
When it's
But it's different though with Brady because Gronkowski's got a lot of injuries.
Exactly, and he takes a lot of hits.
Yeah.
Fortunately, though, Gronkowski honestly is a oversized great talent, for his role.
Right. Yeah.
He was like Too Tall was when defensive ends were averaging 6'4", he was 6'9".
Right. Yeah.
You can throw the ball to him, especially if you have a 5'11" defensive back on it.
Yeah.
He's always going to get it.
Well, and he catches everything, and he's pretty fast for a big guy, and he's open a lot.
He is. But why? Belichick splits him out. This is a tight end that probably runs 5'5". He's not fast.
Right.
He splits him out. He forces individual man coverage.
Right.
You follow me?
Right.
And therefore, the way that the play is structured also takes advantage of his talent.
See, wouldn't you like to one day have a clinic with a bunch of rowdy football fans and kind of explain the science of the game to people?
Yeah, I would.
I mean, because
I'd like for you to be there with me, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll protect you.
That's right.
No, but the
6'4".
Yeah. 30 years, a little too old.
That's right.
But when you think about that, because there is so much that goes in. There's 11 guys on each side of the ball, and they all have a job to do a certain way.
Yeah.
On every play. And you get back to Brady and everything. I think on his 100th drop back in the playoffs, he got tackled for a sack. And when he got tackled, two guys almost hit him. And I'm saying he just even doesn't get hit hard. He kind of knows I'm going to go down now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He even knew it was his 100th sack. I mean, he celebrates everything.
Yeah, but I mean, it was his 100th drop back, and that's what it took for him to get sacked.
To me, what was interesting was that all year long, the Rams have had an explosive offense.
Right.
But their defense has been dominant. I don't remember hearing Aaron Donald's name called a lot. I don't remember hearing Ndamukong Suh's name called a lot.
Yeah, but they only gave up 13 points.
That's true. That's a good point.
You know what I mean? You're right. You wouldn't realize that they were dominant. But if they're okay. Let me get into something else.
Yeah.
Jared Goff was 19 of 38, 229 yards, one interception, a 57.9 rating. He had two touchdown passes dropped that were right in the guy's hand. If those were caught, so he's suddenly 21 of 38, and instead of 229 yards, he would have had about close to 300 yards and two touchdowns. So all of a sudden, his numbers would have looked pretty good then.
Right.
And if those were caught, maybe this whole game is different. Maybe it's a 17-13, and then the discussion isn't about the great Bill Belichick. Maybe the discussion is about this young great quarterback who took down the Patriots. Now, I know they didn't.
Right.
But football to me is, they talk about baseball being a game of inches. Football to me is a game of inches.
Without a doubt.
I mean,
But the two passes he completed, the two passes that you say
that were dropped.
Right. Were two passes where both the defensive backs were really right there on them. There were also two touchdowns.
Right.
That no one was anywhere near the receiver. And by the time he realized that the guy was open.
Oh, yeah, that was a third one.
Yeah.
That was on him because that guy was open the whole route.
And a number of times, there were underneath opens that he missed.
Right.
He either missed them because he didn't see them, or he missed them because his delivery was so wide that they were able to make an adjustment through his throwing pattern. And that's, if you remember, that's what was the start of the game. Was they showed you Brady's and his throwing approach,
right,
and they showed you Jared Goff's
right,
baseball pitcher throwing approach,
right.
And so I believe that had a lot to do with
Now is that how he throws the football now, or was he doing that because of the defense?
No, that's how he throws. That they showed a lot of clips on his release patterns. See, the release is very important for short passes. The first thing they tell you is getting the ball out of your hand as a quarterback.
Yeah, as quickly as possible.
And who does it best? Brady.
Right.
He gets it, and why does he does it? Edelman.
Yeah.
They have their safety valves allow him to neutralize the defensive line. But when you allow the defensive line to slap and over and make three steps before you can get it back here to throw, you don't really have to sack him. You just have to be in the area.
Right.
Because if you're going to throw a baseball pitcher thing, well, it's going to come out here. Well, just let me jump here.
Yeah.
You follow me?
Yeah.
Now you got to versus
Right.
getting it right.
And you were, before we went on, you were listing to me the other quarterbacks that throw like Brady.
Yeah.
Which was a pretty good list. Johnny Unitas. Who else? Who else?
Joe Gilliam, Patrick Mahomes, especially Patrick Mahomes. But Johnny Unitas, Joe Namath, Joe Gilliam, they were all quick release. Tom Brady, Dan Marino.
Yeah.
Dan Marino kept it here, so when it was time, he could get it out of there.
Now, you met Patrick Mahomes at the Super Bowl at some of the festivities.
I did. Absolutely fantastic young man.
So football is going to be turned over to some pretty good hands.
I think so. I think, and even Jared Goff. I didn't get a chance to meet him, but I think that the game is going in a good direction offensively. People like to see scores, and therefore, these kind of young men will give you a lot of scores.
Yeah, well, Mahomes, but it's like we had talked earlier. You had mentioned, how is he going to top this year?
Well,
you can't.
That's true.
If he does, then he's in the stratosphere.
And you and I had a similar conversation with Dak about Dak Prescott. His first year was tremendous.
Yeah.
And now people understand Patrick, and they'll see
enough film.
Yeah, there's a lot of film on him. But I don't know how you can defend throwing with your left hand or your right hand or under the shoulder.
Well, how you fling a ball sideways 50 yards right on target, is another thing.
But I have to say this. What I saw in that young man, just observing him, he stopped to talk to kids. He stopped to talk to elderly people. He was not arrogant. He was inviting to the public.
Right.
He got an award at the Lee Steinberg party.
Right.
But he just seems to, his father was a former baseball player.
Right.
And so, to me, he's a good example of youth and their invitation into the sport.
How I wonder, you played in the NFL, as you would say, pre-93, and I would say, but a lot pre-93. What is it like when you meet the young kids now, knowing that you played? Does it just flood you back with memories? Is it like, oh man, where's the time gone? What is it like when you meet the young guys, when you look at them and go, that was me, but 100 years ago?
That's another great question. I think for me, the first thing that comes to mind is a fraternal order.
Right.
This is a group of people that's going through some of the same things that I went through. There's a different remuneration for it, but still the physical challenges that it places on your body and your mind, that they're going through that. And I think that there's a mutual respect pre-1993 and post-1993.
Right.
There's a mutual respect, and I think that's one of the reasons we're looking to try to establish in the next CBA, collective bargaining agreement, universal vestation across the board, and health support, health and family support across the board. One thing for sure, Scott, and I share this with the union as well, as an active player group, they're making money, they're a part of the union, but there's also a limited number of people per team.
Right.
But as a former player chapter, everybody that's cut becomes a former player. So that's the environment that's constantly growing, the former player chapters. And therefore, the objective in former player environments should be support for the family, education, health, financial stability, growth and investment, educational solidarity. Those kinds of things are important to guys, and with a different importance to post 1993 because of based on the salaries. But both of the issues are relevant to both eras.
Yeah, I just sit and think, though, when you're with all the retired guys, at the Super Bowl especially, the memories, the thoughts individually that you all have, when you're seeing all the young rising stars and everything, it's got to be. I'd like to read everybody's mind at that one exact moment, when they're out there.
That's so relevant. At the Trust event, we had a Living Legends community event and a Trust event every night, and Claude Humphrey happened to be there. I'm from Memphis. Claude's from Memphis, and a guy that played with me and Claude went to Tennessee State before Too Tall. Okay.
Okay, so before you.
And before me.
Right.
Richard Dent went to Tennessee State.
Right.
Those are our defensive ends. Too Tall is the only one not in the Hall of Fame.
That's ridiculous.
And that's something. But Claude was there. I got a chance to talk to him and let him know that there was not a chapter in the Memphis, Mississippi, Arkansas area, in West Tennessee. There's not a chapter that's taking care of the needs for players. And his daughters kind of take care of his business, and he was very supportive in helping us get a chapter started in that part of the country.
Yeah. No, it's amazing when you throw out these names and everything. What I don't want to see happen to Too Tall Jones, Ron Santo, who was a great baseball player for the Chicago Cubs, was always up for the Hall of Fame. And if you look at his individual record, he had a tremendous career with the Cubs, overshadowed by Billy Williams and Ernie Banks, both in the Hall of Fame. And I kept saying, and then Ron wound up as a beloved broadcaster. I was telling you earlier, my kids had no clue my previous life, before they were born. I think of the generation of people that only thought of Ron Santo as this crazy color guy in the Cubs that have no clue what a superstar on the baseball field he was. Yeah. And I kept saying, they are going to put this guy in the Hall of Fame after he dies and not before. It would drive me crazy. And then he had diabetes his whole life. He was a big advocate for diabetes. He got cancer. He was still broadcasting as they removed his legs because of diabetes. Still kept a great attitude, kept fighting. Finally passed away. It was a terrible moment in Chicago when he passed away. And then the very first time he was eligible for the Hall of Fame after he passed away, he got in. And yes, but why couldn't they do it while he was here? Yeah. And I don't want to see. I don't want to see that happen to Too Tall Jones.
Well, we don't either, I tell you.
I want, obviously Too Tall Jones is in good health and we expect him to be around a long time. But what are you doing? Why isn't this guy in the Hall of Fame?
Do you remember Wayman Bryant?
Do I remember? Yes, and we had him on our show.
Exactly. And well, the reason I ask it
and I remember because a Bear fan, I remember when Superman came onto the team.
And that's where I was going with this. I took pictures, at the Super Bowl, they have the quarterback stand, and for you, I had one of my friends take a picture in Trubisky's full jersey. Right. But as we look, when you talk about Ed, and Ed and Wayman were actually drafted the same year in the first round.
Right.
And I didn't know. Well, the reason I asked is because I wanted to know if the Bears if they held Wayman in the same regard. Because I know he came right after Dick Butkus.
Yeah, and he had talked about this on the show, and it's something I'll never forget. And Adam, this would be a good place to put on the screen the link to Wayman on Larry's show on the Extra Point. Because he talked about how in college he was, he got no notoriety because there was somebody called Too Tall Jones. And he said he never got any in Chicago because he was replacing Dick Butkus. So he goes, I couldn't, and he was a very different player. He goes, Butkus and I would both annihilate guys, and Butkus would stomp on him and walk away. He goes, I would extend my hand and pull him up. And he goes that they just ripped him apart all the time in Chicago for that. So there's a guy,
Yeah.
It's amazing, overshadow. I was teasing you at the beginning of the show. You have your own TV show, big deal. You went to school with Oprah Winfrey. She had a better one. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there's a case where it's true. He played in the shadows, a superstar in his own right.
Yeah.
Because I think all you guys, you made it to the NFL. You were obviously superstars your whole life, and there's a guy that really was overshadowed.
Yeah, he was.
All right. Well, I need your opinion on what's going to be for the quarterback situation in the NFL next year. Patrick Mahomes.
I think that because of his mobility and his unpredictability, I think he's going to have a good year next year.
Okay.
Because I think he just creates stuff. I don't think you can predict him.
Mitch Trubisky.
I think that Mitch is. I think he required one more year of leadership.
Right.
And I think that's what he got this year. Hopefully, he doesn't run as much next year, so he doesn't get hurt at all.
Right.
And I think that between Mitch Trubisky on the offense and Khalil Mack on the defense, watch out, here comes the Bears.
Here come the Bears, of course. Carson Wentz.
I think Carson, again, I think Carson is going to spend this offseason probably doing more weightlifting than anything, getting his body together to a point where he can make it through the entire season. I still like the Eagles. I think there were 5 former players that were coaching in the actual conference championships going in. Doug Peterson was one of those, and he's the coach with the Eagles. So, and Jason Garrett was one.
Right.
But I like the Eagles, and I think that Carson is going to probably be more physical and do something to try to get his body more stable than anything else.
Nick Foles.
I think Nick is a perfect backup. He's making great money, right, on a good team, and I think that he's comfortable behind Carson and can give Carson the kind of confidence and stability for their entire team to get back.
So they're not going to trade him.
I don't think so.
And he's not going to demand to be traded because he wants to be a starter.
Oh, Nick?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think Nick really wants to be a starter anymore. When you're making that kind of money and you can only play 3 or 4 games a year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I always say the backup quarterback is the best job in the world.
Oh, let me tell you.
You make a lot of money and you don't have to get hurt.
That's right.
Okay, Baker Mayfield.
I think Baker, to me, is something similar to Patrick in that he's a bit unpredictable. One of the interesting things about Baker is that Ozzie Newsome is the general manager there. Hall of Fame, tight end with the Bears from 78 to 90, I think, played a long time, executive vice president of the club. He's actually retiring this year. So I like what Baker did with that team, but it'll be interesting to see who the new GM is to hopefully align and still support Baker's objectives.
See, Baker is a guy that had to always keep proving himself in college, too. He had to leave, I guess it was Tech. Texas Tech he was at. Went to Oklahoma, didn't even tell anybody at Oklahoma he was there. Went to school for a year, and then went as a walk-on. And competed, got on the team, and then took over the team and had a great career.
And now
funny.
Look at it.
And then he went into the pros, number 1 in the draft, and a lot of skepticism. His size, he can't do this and can't do that, and he had a pretty good rookie year. With that team, and there's so much hope now in Cleveland. It's exciting to see Cleveland. All of a sudden they feel like we could win a game.
And I think these young quarterbacks, because they move so much, there's a degree of unpredictability.
Yeah.
And therefore, when you get the film on them, they might do something even.
So could Johnny Manziel have made it? Did he just blow it, or was he just not talented enough?
I think Johnny is very talented. I think Johnny Manziel is not a leader.
Okay.
I don't think that he whatever his development was, it didn't earn the respect by other players that Baker has.
So you think that
Patrick has.
So you think that was his downfall?
Yeah. A lot of it was about him.
Yeah.
Well, the quarterback is about you anyway.
Right.
He used to do a lot of this.
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the quarterback is going to make more money than anyone else on the team.
Right.
They're going to get no more notoriety. So if you're trying to turn the spotlight constantly on you, then how can you lead 22 other guys?
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Kyler Murray.
I hope he goes to baseball. I think that.
Why do you say that?
Well, because of the science that we now have, on football and the longevity of your career in baseball and basketball versus football. I believe that he's probably making a good move in testing the waters for the draft to see, they say in a capitalistic country it is about capital.
Right.
So he's testing that to see what he can get from there. But I believe that based on the quickness of his pace and his size, I think baseball would be a perfect fit.
But here's what I'm thinking about him. He has a minor league contract with Oakland.
Mm.
The minor leagues, you never had to play in the minor leagues. You get on that bus and you drive to Birmingham, and then you get on the bus and you drive to somewhere in Kentucky, or you get drafted in the first round in the NFL, and you walk out into this huge stadium with 80,000 people screaming at you.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean?
Didn't he get $4.6 million though to play on that?
Absolutely.
Right, so.
I'm just saying though, but you got a 22-year-old kid who has been idolized his whole life, and he's looking, my road ahead is a lot of hard work, whichever way he goes, but in the minor leagues.
Right.
And in the football, in the NFL, you're the guy on a football team.
One of the reasons I played football versus baseball, and I should have played baseball, was because it wasn't a whole lot of people in the stands at the baseball game.
Well, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
And going out to those minor leagues, watch Bull Durham, the movie.
That's right.
That's what his life will be like for a couple of years with his $4 million, and then he still has to make it. The NFL, if he starts a quarterback on some team next year, he's one of 32 guys in the world.
That's true.
That
Also,
says I'm the starting quarterback in the NFL.
Consider this.
I'm just saying, as a kid, what you're thinking.
Yeah, but I also consider the fact that I'm a Heisman Trophy winner, right?
Right.
And there could be some baseball teams that draft him that will move him directly to the team just for his notoriety.
Well, he's been drafted already.
Exactly.
So, it's going to be really interesting to say. I agree with you. I think he should play baseball for the reasons you stated. I watched him get a bad, terrible injury in the first week. But baseball, generally, your career is much longer. Yeah. And if you become a star, the money is much better. Yeah. Of course, I don't feel sorry for somebody making $30 million a year, in either league. And, but I think as a kid, you just see the beauty of the NFL and all the fanfare around the draft even. When he was drafted, who knew?
Yeah.
But when you see the NFL draft, everybody watches it. It's a big event.
That's true.
So
we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
I'm sure his parents has a lot of input though. Because his parent also was a professional baseball player.
His dad was?
Yeah.
Well, and that might be, he'll look at his dad and say, that's why I'm going to football. If the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, were you a star, Dad? I'll go to football.
I'll go to football.
Type thing. All right, so we just have to do it. Who's going to be in the Super Bowl next year?
Oh, wow. That's a hard one to predict. We would, the only kind of person that can have those type of long predictions would be Scott Farber.
Of course. Yeah. Well, give me your guess then.
I would think that, who would go next year? Out of the NFC, I would think...
Wrong.
I was going to say the Bears.
Right.
Scott, I think that injury has so much to do with it.
Oh, I look at the games at the end of the year, and I'm going, this is really tragic that some of these guys are playing now, that they have to be, because it's, it still hasn't been settled yet. Because you just get afraid of it.
Exactly. It was some game, I think, where they had to put safeties on the corner.
Yeah.
You remember? Yeah. Somebody just took advantage of the safety because they knew he couldn't play corner.
Yeah.
So I think from that perspective, it's hard to determine who. If I had to go with someone, I would probably go with the Giants. And well, I can't say the Bears now because that's in our city. So I'd probably go with the Giants and the Patriots.
You know, I would pick the Patriots too, but I think Kansas City's finally going to push the envelope. I think Mahomes is going to be that good, and Brady's going to be real good too. But maybe that team will be a notch down, and I think that's all it'll take to get like a Kansas City team in there. So I'm going to go with Kansas City and the Bears.
That would be a really good. I mean, both
Absolutely.
the fan bases are new to it.
And
that's the kind of excitement. I think one of the issues, and I'm sorry to cut you, but one of the issues with this year's Super Bowl was the fact that the Patriots are there so much that it kind of dulled it down.
Well, there's a Patriot fan who I know his son played baseball for me for many years, and he's a real good guy, and he's from Boston, and he is a big Patriot fan. And I just constantly on social media about the Patriots, not in a mean way. You know, he was bragging about how we're now the greatest dynasty ever because we have 6. You know, and more than Pittsburgh, even though we both won 6. So I said, well, what if Pittsburgh? I answered one out of his 12,000 little posts and tweets and whatnot. And I said, what if Pittsburgh wins the 7th one before New England? And he goes, well, then they have to be considered the greatest of all time. And I go, at least he's a gentleman about it.
Yeah.
You know, I gave him a lot of credit. But then I go, actually, because they didn't always call it the Super Bowl, don't the Packers have 11 titles? Between Super Bowl and NFL titles.
Okay.
The Bears have 9. You know, the Bears have just the one Super Bowl, but they have 8 NFL titles. So it's just interesting. And I want to show everybody that Larry did bring me back. He wants me to drink water all the time.
That's right.
You know, water. So he brings me back a water cup from the Super Bowl, which I'm very happy to have, and I thank you for it,
Not
man.
a problem, my friend.
You know. All right. We'll get together again soon.
We definitely
We'll do this again.
Good to see you.
All right. Good seeing you. Take care.